In this video guide, I want to go over some settings for the camera in Twinmotion, which was asked by an subscriber of the channel. So I am going through this topic in this video, specific topic. So how to set up the camera and in the specific the depth of field, but also we can see some other effects. So what I'm going to do is just add here some objects in the scene. So I'm going to add a couple of cars and maybe a couple of people just to test the depth of field, which is essentially the focus and out focus, in focus things in the camera frame. And also want to show you a couple of extra stuff that it's maybe handy to manage and set up your camera correctly. And we're gonna do also video. So we're gonna use like, let's say, a virtual photo camera and a virtual video camera. Now, if you're interested in anything about Twinmotion, you will find a lot of video guides and a video course in Twinmotion in the channel. So I'm gonna go in this just quick on the navigation and all the other stuff. Just drop in some of these objects, and I would not talk about rendering and exporting. This is just to set up the image or the photo camera, the photo or the video with the video camera. So I'm gonna go down here to the media. I'm gonna click plus, and this is gonna be my shot. It's gonna be my frame. I'm gonna frame this, and this is the frame that I set up. Now you can see the camera turns pink, the camera parameters on the right side, because this is just specific for this shot, for this image that I'm working on. So first thing, auto exposure. I tend to turn this off because I want to adjust the exposure manually, just like I would do in a real life camera. So I want to adjust the balance, the exposure, the tint, kind of like post-production thing. I usually do this at the end, but just to go like from top to bottom, we can see here, this is just to fix and give some little color to your shot. And then we have local exposure. So highlights, shadows, you can override a little bit the ones that are already there. So you can work with highlights, shadows, midtones. Lens, focal length. So this is if you want a panoramic or telescopic lens, if you want to use telescopic or panoramic. So you can choose the millimeters here of the lens. And this will also affect other things about the camera, like also the depth of field and perhaps like lens distortion and everything else. Let's move on. Now, vignetting. This is a thing that happens when you use a camera. So I think we can consider this like a defect, but also it makes things more realistic if you're generating a visualization for product or architecture. Sharpness, if you want to make things sharper, which is kind of the opposite of what you do when you use the depth of field, which is putting things out of focus. And then chromatic aberration. Again, this is a defect of the lenses, but using a little of this make the render a little bit more realistic. And this is just the real-time rendering in Twinmotion. This is not like ray tracing or path tracing. This is standard, uh, you know, real-time render. So it already looks okay. I'm gonna show you it's gonna be better after, but let's move on. Align camera, start offset. Again, these are for setting up other specific things about the camera. This is used usually when you do architectural visualization and you don't want like oblique vertical lines, you want perfectly vertical lines. So you align the camera and then you use parallelism. Parallelism is to make things a little bit more like axonometric, or in a way, you can see here I'm fixing the vertical lines. I'm making them more vertical, but well, that's not really what happens in real life when you create a shot, unless you have perfectly aligned point of view and objective. Depth of field. So that's where we're gonna spend a little bit time on. So first of all, you can enable it, and it's already there. You can see it. Now it's all a matter of where you set up the focus of your shot. So if I say 2 meters, you can start to see that the things that are here on the front there are pretty sharper than the things that are on the back. But there's no great difference. There is a difference. It's subtle, it's light, but there is. Now, if you want to increase this effect, well, one thing you can do is adjust. First of all, just be precise in the focus. So you can also use the peak focus instead of setting up like manually. You can do this automatically just with the peak focus tool, and you can see it auto detects the distance. And then you have aperture. Now, if you increase this value, you are decreasing the aperture of the shutter of the camera. So meaning that less light will come in and also less depth of field effect you will have. If you decrease this value, you will have more light coming in and more depth of field effect, and you are basically increasing the aperture. So it's kind of a little bit confusing, but this is how camera work. This is called f-stop or f-number in real cameras. And also it affects the exposure in a way, or the amount of light coming in and out. You cannot go lower than 1, and 1 is a really low value to have a nice depth of field and autofocus effect. Now, to see it better, to see it more, you need to have like really close shot like this. So the character or the object should be, really close to the camera. And you can see that if I switch with the peak focus and select something in the back, now the out of focus, it's really blurred. And the more I move out, the more I am distant from this point, and the more, the less I'm going to see the effect. So it's a matter of choosing the correct position of the camera. So you need to be really close if you want like dramatic depth of field, and adjusting the aperture and setting up the point of focus. That's it. Now, aperture, again, if you increase it, you will lose that out of focus. Let me just, I want to get rid of the navigation bar here so we can see a little bit better. Okay, so this is going to affect the exposure. So if you don't want that, you can click here and say, do not affect exposure. So this is not what happens in real life. You're just like creating a fake thing in a way, but you know, in the end, it matters what you want to do, and you can fake things in Twinmotion, not like in real life. But there you see it. Now I'm just focusing on the depth of field. I want to care about the exposure. So that's why you can check that checkbox down there. Now, also you have the possibility to set up a bokeh shape going from like some like triangles or hexagons into something more circular. If you increase the bokeh shape, we cannot see it right now because that's more when you use lights. So if you use lights or reflections of lights, you will see that better. Now it's not really visible. Now, film back, this is to use presets that are like, let's say, common and in the film industry or in the camera industry. So you can set up like a square, 35 full aperture or IMAX. So these are different types of, camera with different types of resolution. You can also create your customized. So let me just go here, and in the details, if I go to custom, I can then customize the sensor width and the sensor height. So when I create I like this really long, really wide shot like this. I really like it, and I'm gonna go for this. So I'm just, experimenting with you here. But by experimenting, you will find something more interesting. And I will adjust the aperture. Maybe I will increase a little bit. I don't want to like too much. So I think this is fine. And bloom and flares, you can add bloom and flares. Again, they're not going to be visible here because we don't have lights. I'm just going to change the position of the sun so you can see it better. But lens flare, lens blur, again, this is something that we can say it's a defect of the camera that generates this. So it's a defect that make things more realistic, just like the other things we said before, like being a thing and chromatic aberration. Now we can also use safe frames or grids to adjust and set up more properly our shot, because TV screens, they have different size, so some things can be cropped out, and that's why we use safe frame. So title safe, action safe, and then custom safe if you want. Like we usually use this in video editing and montages and things like that. Okay, let's see something about bloom and and flares. I'm gonna go adjust slightly this, okay. And I think I like really wide. I want this really wide shot. Okay, I wanna stay with this. And let's move into. I'm gonna change the position of the sun, but well, I'm gonna update the image that I saved down there, and I also want to do something extra. I want to create a video. So let's switch from a photo camera to a video camera. Now to create a video, just need two snapshots like this, two keyframes. So that's the second one now, and I can change something in this, which could be just the depth of field, for example. So I can just animate the depth of field. Or if I want, I can animate all these parameters right here. So let's animate the depth of field. So if I change the point of focus, now if I click and drag this CTI, this current time indicator, and I move from the first shot to the second shot, you can see there is a really slow change of focus, of depth of field. And this is something you can do animated. So you can create an animation again with a static shot and just changing the depth of field. Or you can animate the camera if you want, or you can animate anything. And again, this is explained in the Twinmotion video course and in other video guides if you're interested. So I'm just gonna stick here with mostly with the depth of field. But let's see here. I want to change in the environment the sun position, so that there you go. So you have the sun there in the back, and you can see now the flare effect and the dirt effect on the camera. So this is what we were talking about before, which we couldn't see. And also this is animated now because I updated the first keyframe. So the whole animation is like kind of a time lapse from a night scene into then a day scene. So it goes all the way, and then it will appear again like this. So it's kind of, you know, sunset and then sunrise, or dusk to dawn animation. So I can definitely fix this, but again, this is just to show you some quick stuff. And also I would adjust the exposure here because we have the light on the back, so it creates that like really dark effect on the front. So I can adjust it with the manual exposure, just as I would do with the real cameras again. And there it is. So uh, I think we covered everything we need to know at the moment in cameras. We will stay updated, so subscribe to stay updated with us in Twinmotion and any other 3D software, 3D visualization. Join the channel to support us. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.